The smell of roasting turkey filled the house, but all I could taste was betrayal. I stood in the kitchen of our family home, basting the bird with mechanical precision while my world crumbled around me. My name is Jack Morrison, and I'm an investigative journalist for the Washington Herald. For 34 years, I thought I knew what family meant. I was wrong. Jack, honey, can you grab the wine from the cellar? My fiancée Natalie's voice drifted from the dining room, sweet as poisoned honey. She'd been acting strange for weeks, distant, secretive, always on her phone. Now I knew why. 3 hours earlier, I'd received a text from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Thought you should know. Saw Natalie leaving Austin's apartment this morning. She was there all night. Austin, my younger brother, the golden child who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. The successful real estate VP who drove a BMW and wore $1,000 suits. The man who was supposed to be my best man in 2 months. I pulled the wine from the rack, my hands steady despite the rage building inside me. 6 months of investigating had taught me patience. 6 months of digging into stories, following paper trails, documenting evidence. I'd developed those skills for work, but today I'd use them for something far more personal. The dining room buzzed with conversation. Mom had outdone herself with the decorations. Red and gold, everything, twinkling lights, the works. Dad sat at the head of the table in his expensive suit, holding court about his latest real estate deals. Austin lounged beside him, smirking at something on his phone. Natalie perched across from them, her engagement ring catching the light, my engagement ring, the one I'd saved 6 months to buy. "There's our chef," Dad boomed as I entered. "Robert, you always were good with your hands. Too bad you chose typing over building empires." Robert Morrison Sr. has to tell the truth. I'd always said, has to tell the truth. I'd always said. He'd laugh and reply, "Someone has to make money." I set the wine down and took my seat. "Speaking of truth, I have something to share." "Oh, wonderful." Mom clapped her hands. "Are you finally going to announce a promotion? Maybe a move to something more substantial?" "Not exactly." I looked directly at Natalie. Her face went pale. "I know about Austin." The room fell silent, except for the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Austin's smirk faltered. Natalie's hand moved instinctively to her throat. "Know about what?" Dad's voice carried a warning. "About the affair." I kept my voice level, professional. "About how my fiancé has been sleeping with my brother for the past 3 months." Austin recovered first, his trademark confidence sliding back into place. "Jack, buddy, I think you've been working too hard. All those conspiracy theories are getting to your head. Mrs. Patterson saw Natalie leaving your apartment this morning at 6 a.m. She was wearing the same dress from last night's Christmas party." I pulled out my phone, showing the time-stamped photo my elderly neighbor had texted. She also saw her there Tuesday night and last weekend. Natalie finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Jack, I can explain. Can you explain this?" I swiped to another photo, Natalie and Austin kissing in his car outside the Marriott downtown. "Or this?" Another swipe, them holding hands at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. The evidence was overwhelming. I'd spent years learning how to build airtight cases, and I'd built one against the 2 people I'd trusted most. Mom's wineglass hit the table with a sharp clink. "Robert, this is Christmas dinner. Can't we discuss this privately?" "No, Mom. We're discussing it now." I stood up, looking around the table. "I want to know where everyone stands." Austin leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. "Look, Jack, these things happen. Natalie and we connected. It's not personal. Not personal." My voice cracked slightly. "You slept with my fiancée. She chose the better man." Austin's smirk returned full force. "Can you really blame her?" The words hit like a physical blow. I turned to my parents, expecting support, outrage, something. Instead, I found cold calculation in Dad's eyes and embarrassment in Mom's. "Jack," Dad said slowly, "you're making a scene. This is between you and Natalie. Don't drag the family into it." "The family?" I stared at him. "Austin is family. He betrayed me. Austin made a choice. Natalie made a choice." Mom's voice was ice cold. "Maybe you should ask yourself why." The room spun slightly. "Are you taking their side?" "There are no shades," Dad said firmly. "There's just reality. You're 34 years old, Robert. You make $40,000 a year, writing stories nobody reads. You live in a studio apartment and drive a 10-year-old Honda. What did you expect? Austin nodded along. Dad's right. I mean, look at what I can offer her. The penthouse, the car, the lifestyle. You can't compete with that. I looked at Natalie, hoping for some sign of remorse, some indication that this meant something to her. Instead, she was nodding. I'm sorry, Jack, I really am. But Austin and I, we just make sense together. You were engaged to me. My voice was barely a whisper. I was settling. The words came out like bullets. I thought I could be happy with less, but when Austin showed interest, Mom reached across the table and patted Natalie's hand. Sweetheart, you don't have to explain yourself. The heart wants what it wants. I stood there, surrounded by my family, watching them comfort the woman who'd just destroyed my life. For your situation. Austin laughed. For your situation. Austin laughed, actually laughed. Come on, bro. Don't be such a sufferer. You were never good enough for someone like Natalie. We all knew it. Dad nodded approvingly. Austin's right. Stop acting like this is some great tragedy. You're embarrassing yourself. I looked around the table one more time. At my parents, who'd raised me to believe in loyalty and family. At my brother, who'd taken the most important thing in my life without a second thought. At my fiancé, who was already sliding closer to Austin's chair. Then I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile I'd learned to wear during difficult interviews when sources tried to lie to my face. The smile that said I knew more than I was letting on. You know what? I said quietly. You're absolutely right. Thanks for showing me exactly who you are. All of you. I walked to Natalie and held out my hand. The ring. She hesitated, then slowly pulled it off. The diamond felt cold against my palm. I appreciate your honesty, I continued, my voice steady and calm. Really, I do. It makes everything so much easier. What's that supposed to mean? Austin asked, his confidence wavering slightly. It means I know where I stand now. It means I know exactly what kind of people you are. I pocketed the ring. It means you've made this very, very easy for me. Dad frowned. Robert, what are you talking about? Nothing, Dad, just thank you. Thank you all for making it so clear. I grabbed my coat from the back of my chair. Merry Christmas, family. Enjoy your dinner. I walked out of that house with my head high, leaving behind the sound of confused murmuring and Austin's nervous laughter. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd put me in my place. They had no idea what was coming. I drove through the empty Christmas streets, my mind crystal clear for the first time in months. The betrayal hurt. God, it hurt like nothing I'd ever experienced. But underneath the pain was something else. Something cold and calculating that I recognized from my best investigative work. I wasn't the failure they thought I was. While Austin had been climbing Dad's corporate ladder, I'd been building something else entirely. My byline appeared in the Washington Herald, one of the most respected papers on the East Coast. My investigative pieces had exposed corrupt politicians, predatory businesses, and financial fraud schemes that had stolen millions from innocent people. I was good at my job. Very good. And for the past 6 months, I've been working on the biggest story of my career. A story about Morrison Properties, Dad's successful real estate empire. A story I'd planned to bury out of family loyalty. That loyalty died tonight. I parked outside my apartment building and climbed the stairs to my studio. It wasn't much. Dad was right about that. But it was mine. No mortgage payments to a company built on lies. No lifestyle funded by other people's money. I opened my laptop and stared at the file folder labeled Morrison Investigation. 6 months of work. Bank records, property documents, investor testimonials, financial statements, shell company registrations. Everything I'd need to bring down a criminal empire. Because that's what Morrison Properties was. A criminal empire. It had started as a routine business profile. The Herald's business editor wanted a feel-good piece about successful family businesses in the region. Do something on your dad's company, she'd suggested. Local boy makes good, builds real estate dynasty, easy Sunday feature. I'd agreed, thinking it would be simple. Dad had always bragged about his success, his properties, his investors. Austin worked as vice president of development, supposedly bringing in millions in new deals every year. Mom lived like a queen, shopping trips to New York, jewelry that cost more than my annual salary. But when I started digging, the numbers didn't add up. Property valuations were inflated by 30 to 40%. Investors were being shown fake financial statements. Money was flowing through a maze of shell companies, all designed to hide the true financial picture. What looked like a successful business was actually an elaborate Ponzi scheme, using new investor money to pay returns to earlier investors, while Dad and Austin skimmed millions off the top. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged documents, fake appraisals, phantom properties that existed only on paper, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, tax returns that bore no resemblance to the actual financial statements shown to investors. Conservative estimate, $12 million in investor fraud. Federal crimes carrying decades in prison. I documented everything. Every transaction, every forged signature, every lie told to every investor. I had sources, former employees who'd quit rather than participate, investors who'd grown suspicious, bank officials who'd noticed irregularities. The story was bulletproof. Pulitzer Prize material, career-making journalism, and I'd been planning to delete every word of it. Family loyalty, blood being thicker than water, all those cliches that had kept me awake at night. Wrestling with my conscience, how could I destroy my own father? How could I send my brother to prison? Now I knew the answer, easily. I opened the first document, a bank statement showing a $2 million transfer from Morrison Properties to a shell company called Atlantic Holdings LLC. Austin's signature on the authorization, Dad's signature on the receiving account. Money stolen from retired teachers, small business owners, families who trusted Morrison Properties with their life savings. My phone buzzed, a text from Austin. "Hey bro, don't be mad. Come back. Let's talk this out like adults." I deleted it without responding. Another text, this one from Mom. "Robert, you're being dramatic. Come home, we'll work this out." Deleted. Natalie, "Jack, please, I never meant for it to happen this way. Can we meet somewhere and talk?" I stared at that one longer. 3 months. She'd been lying to my face for 3 months, planning our wedding while sleeping with my brother, taking my ring, accepting my love, all while knowing she was going to leave me for someone with more money. Deleted. I pulled up my contacts and scrolled to Sarah Chen, my editor at the Herald. Sarah was tough, brilliant, and absolutely ruthless when it came to big stories. She'd been pushing me for months to finish the Morrison investigation. "I know it's your family," and she'd said during our last meeting, "but if half of what you've shown me is true, these people belong in prison. How many more investors are they going to defraud while you wrestle with your conscience?" I'd promised her a decision after the holidays. She was going to get one sooner than expected. My finger hovered over her number. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. Dad would go to prison. Austin would go to prison. Mom would lose everything. The family name would be destroyed. The memory of Austin's smirk flashed through my mind. She chose the better man. I hit dial. "Jack?" Sarah's voice was alert despite the late hour. "Everything okay? I'm ready to publish the Morrison story." A pause. "Are you sure? I know today was Christmas with your family. If they said something to change your mind, they showed me exactly who they are," I said quietly. "The story runs as soon as possible. Front page, every detail. No family considerations, no pulled punches. I want to destroy them." "Jack," Sarah's voice was careful, "this is a big decision. Maybe you should sleep on it. Make sure you're thinking clearly. I've never been more clear about anything in my life. How soon can we run it? If you're absolutely certain, I can have the story ready for tomorrow's edition. But Jack, once this goes public, your family will know it came from you. There's no hiding it." "Good. I want them to know." "Okay. Send me everything you have. I'll start working on it tonight." I began uploading files. Bank records, property documents, investor testimonials, photographs of forged signatures, 6 months of meticulous investigation, all building toward this moment. As I worked, more texts came in. Austin trying to be conciliatory, Mom demanding I come home, Dad ordering me to stop being childish. I ignored them all. The last file uploaded at 2:47 a.m. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 32 unread messages. I turned it off and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept perfectly. I woke up to pounding on my door. Sunlight streamed through my windows, and my phone showed 11:23 a.m. The pounding continued, accompanied by Austin's voice. "Jack, open up. We need to talk." I made coffee first. Let him wait. When I finally opened the door, Austin pushed past me into the apartment. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, wild eyes. Behind him stood Natalie, tears streaking her makeup. "What the hell did you do?" Austin grabbed my shirt. "Dad's been getting calls all morning. Investors, lawyers, reporters. Someone leaked information about the company." I sipped my coffee. "That's terrible. Corporate espionage is a real problem these days." "Don't play dumb with me." Austin's face was red with rage. "This was you. You're the only one with access to—" He stopped, realization dawning. "The business profile. You were supposed to write a puff piece about Dad's company. You've been investigating us." "Very good, Austin. That Harvard MBA finally paying off." Natalie stepped forward. "Jack, please, whatever you think you know, I know everything." I pulled out my phone, showing her a photo of a bank statement. "Atlantic Holdings, LLC. Ring any bells? How about Coastal Development, Inc.? Or maybe Sunrise Properties Group?" Austin's face went white. Those were the shell companies they'd been using to hide money. "I know about the inflated property values, the fake appraisals, the phantom developments that exist only on paper. I know about the Cayman accounts, the forged documents, the $12 million you've stolen from investors." "You can't prove any of that," Austin said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Can I?" I opened my laptop, showing him folders full of documents. Bank records going back 3 years. Property deeds with forged signatures, your signatures, by the way. Investor statements showing returns that don't exist. Financial records that would make the FBI very interested in Morrison Properties. Natalie sank onto my couch. "Oh, God. Jack, you have to understand. I understand perfectly. You chose the better man, remember? The successful one with the penthouse and the BMW. Too bad it's all built on stolen money." Austin began pacing. "Okay, look, maybe there were some irregularities, but that's business. Everyone cuts corners. No one got hurt." "No one got hurt?" I pulled up another file. "Margaret Stevens, retired teacher. Invested her entire pension, $340,000, based on your fake financial statements. She's living on Social Security now because you stole her money. David Chen, small business owner, gave you $180,000 to invest in your phantom development project. Had to sell his restaurant when you couldn't pay him back." I kept scrolling. Sarah Martinez, single mother. Tom Bradley, disabled veteran. Dozens of people who trusted Morrison Properties with their life savings. All of them defrauded. All of them hurt. Austin stopped pacing. "What do you want? Money? A cut of the business? Name your price." "I want justice." "Justice?" Austin laughed, but it sounded forced. "Come on, Jack. We're family. Family protects each other. Family doesn't sleep with each other's fiancés. That's different. That's personal. This is business. This is crime, Austin. Federal crime. Wire fraud, tax evasion, money laundering. You're looking at 25 years in prison." Natalie started crying harder. "Jack, please. I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry. I'll leave Austin. We can work this out." "You think this is about you?" I stared at her. "You think I'm doing this because you hurt my feelings? Aren't you? I'm doing this because it's right. Because you people are criminals who've been stealing from innocent families for years. Because someone needs to stop you." My phone rang. Sarah Chen. "Jack, we need to talk. The story goes live in 2 hours, but I'm getting calls from Morrison Properties lawyers. They're threatening injunctions, lawsuits, the works." I put her on speaker. "What kind of threats?" "The usual. Defamation, invasion of privacy, corporate espionage. They're claiming you obtained documents illegally." Austin grabbed my phone. "Sarah, this is Austin Morrison. My brother's having some kind of breakdown. Whatever he's told you," Sarah's voice turned ice cold. "Mr. Morrison, I suggest you contact your own lawyer. The documents we have are legally obtained and thoroughly verified. The story runs in 2 hours." Austin threw the phone back at me. "You son of a witch! You're going to destroy everything Dad built. Dad built a criminal enterprise. I'm going to expose it. And what about Mom? You think she deserves to lose everything? Mom signed documents too. She's complicit. She's your mother. She chose her side yesterday. At Christmas dinner, when she told me not to be petty about my fiancé sleeping with my brother. Austin's shoulders sagged. Jack, please. We can fix this. We can pay back the investors, make things right. You don't have to destroy the family. The family destroyed itself. I'm just documenting it. Natalie looked up from the couch. What about us? What about everything we had? We never had anything. You were planning to leave me for someone with more money. Well, congratulations. You picked a winner. I walked to the window, looking out at the city. The story goes live at 2 p.m. By tonight, the FBI will have warrants. By tomorrow, Austin will be in handcuffs. By next week, Morrison Properties will be shut down and its assets seized. You're making a mistake, Austin said quietly. You think you're some kind of hero, but you're just a bitter man destroying his own family out of spite. Maybe, but at least I'm not a criminal. They left without another word. I watched from my window as they got into Austin's BMW, the one bought with stolen money, and drove away, and at exactly 2 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. The Washington Herald's website had posted the story, Morrison Properties, a family business built on fraud. The headline made me smile. The story went viral within hours. By evening, it had been picked up by CNN, Fox News, and every major newspaper in the country. Real estate dynasty built on lies. Family business exposed as massive fraud. Journalist exposed his own father's criminal empire. That last headline stung, but not for the reasons people might think. It stung because it took me 34 years to see the truth about my own family. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Reporters wanting interviews, investors wanting information, lawyers representing the defrauded families. I'd turned it off after the 50th call. Sarah called on my landline at 9 p.m. Jack, this is incredible. The story's been shared over 1 million times. We're getting calls from federal prosecutors, the SEC, the IRS. This is going to bring down the whole operation. Good. How are you holding up? I know this can't be easy. I'm fine. Your family's been calling the paper all day, demanding retractions, threatening lawsuits. Your father's lawyer says they're going to sue you personally for defamation. Let them try. Everything in that story is documented and verified. I know, but Jack, they're your family. Are you sure you're okay with this? I thought about Christmas dinner, Austin's smirk, Mom's cold dismissal, Dad's contempt, Natalie's betrayal. They're not my family anymore. The next morning, I woke up to sirens. Lots of sirens. I looked out my window and saw them. Black SUVs with federal plates, unmarked cars, a van full of FBI agents in tactical gear. They weren't coming for me. They were heading toward Morrison Properties. I grabbed my camera and followed. The FBI raid was everything I'd hoped for and more. Agents swarmed the Morrison Properties building, carrying out boxes of documents, computer hard drives, filing cabinets. A crowd had gathered on the street, phones out, recording everything. I spotted Austin through the office window, hands zip-tied behind his back, being led out by 2 agents. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled. The golden boy didn't look so golden anymore. Dad appeared next, shouting at the agents, demanding to see warrants, threatening lawsuits. They ignored him, continuing their methodical seizure of evidence. To see your father and brother to see your father and brother in handcuffs? I looked at the camera, thinking about all the investors who'd lost their life savings, all the families who had trusted Morrison Properties with their futures. It feels like justice, the reporter pressed on. Some people are saying you betrayed your own family. How do you respond to that? I didn't betray anyone. I exposed criminals. The fact that they happen to be related to me is irrelevant. But surely family loyalty doesn't extend to covering up crimes. If anything, families should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one. I walked away, leaving the media circus behind. That afternoon, the charges were announced. Dad faced 23 counts of wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Austin faced 15 counts as a co-conspirator. If convicted, Dad was looking at 25 years in federal prison. Austin was looking at 15. Mom was arrested at home that evening. She'd signed documents as corporate secretary, making her complicit in the fraud. The local news showed her being led away in handcuffs, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. By the end of the week, Morrison Properties was finished. Federal agents had seized all assets. The office building, the luxury cars, the family mansion, even Mom's jewelry. Everything would be liquidated to pay back defrauded investors. The Cayman accounts were frozen. The shell companies were dissolved. 3 generations of Morrison's success evaporated in a matter of days. I watched it all from my studio apartment, feeling nothing but satisfaction. 3 weeks after the raid, I was working late at the Herald when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? You son of a witch! Austin's voice was raw with hatred. Are you happy now? How did you get this number? I'm out on bail for now. Dad's still in lockup. They denied his bail application. Too much of a flight risk, they said. Good. Good? He's 67 years old, Jack. He's got high blood pressure and diabetes. Prison could eliminate him. Should have thought of that before he started stealing from people. We're going to lose everything. The house, the cars, Mom's jewelry, everything we worked for. Everything you stole. Austin's voice cracked. We're family, Jack. How could you do this to us? You did this to yourselves. I just reported the truth. The truth. You want to know the truth? The truth is, you're a bitter, jealous failure who couldn't stand seeing his family succeed. So you destroyed us. I destroyed criminals. You destroyed your own blood. My own blood destroyed itself when it chose crime over honesty, when it chose betrayal over loyalty. This is about Natalie, isn't it? You couldn't handle losing her to a better man, so This has nothing to do with Natalie. Biz! You're doing this because she left you for me. I was quiet for a long moment. Austin, let me ask you something. When did you first sleep with her? Silence. When, Austin? It doesn't matter. It was before Christmas, wasn't it? Months before. How long were you planning to humiliate me? More silence. You want to know why I published that story? It wasn't because Natalie left me. It wasn't even because you betrayed me. It was because when I gave you the chance to show remorse, to show some basic human decency, you laughed in my face, all of you. Jack, you told me she chose the better man. Dad told me I was never good enough for anyone. Mom told me not to be petty. You showed me exactly who you were, and I believed you. We were angry. We'd said things we didn't mean. No, Austin. You said exactly what you meant. You showed me your true selves, and I responded accordingly. So this is revenge? This is consequences. The line went quiet for a long time. When Austin spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. What happens now? Now you face trial. You go to prison. You live with what you've done. And you? What do you get out of this? I looked around the Herald newsroom at my colleagues working late, chasing stories, seeking truth. I get to sleep at night. Austin hung up. The trial began 6 months later. I testified for the prosecution, walking the jury through the evidence I'd gathered, explaining how the fraud worked, identifying the forged documents and fake financial statements. Dad stared at me with pure hatred the entire time I was on the stand. Austin wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom wasn't there. She'd taken a plea deal, agreeing to 5 years probation and full restitution in exchange for her testimony against Dad and Austin. The prosecution's case was airtight. My investigation had provided them with everything they needed: a complete roadmap of the criminal enterprise, documented proof of every fraudulent transaction, testimony from sufferers and former employees. Dad was convicted on all counts. 20 years in federal prison. Austin was convicted on 12 of 15 counts. 15 years in federal prison. I watched the verdicts from the gallery, surrounded by the investors they'd defrauded. When the judge read guilty for the final count, several people started crying, not from sadness, but from relief. Justice had finally been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me again. How do you feel about your father and brother's convictions? I feel like the system worked. Criminals were held accountable for their crimes. Do you have any regrets about exposing your own family? My only regret is that it took me so long to do it. What's next for you? I looked up at the courthouse steps, where sufferers and their families were celebrating, finally seeing some measure of justice after years of being ignored. I'm going back to work. There are more stories to tell. 1 year later, I stood in the ballroom of the Marriott Hotel holding a Crystal Award and looking out at 200 of the country's top journalists, the Pulitzer Prize for Investigative Reporting, the highest honor in my profession. The Morrison Properties investigation, the presenter was saying, represents journalism at its finest: meticulous research, courageous reporting, and an unwavering commitment to truth, even when that truth came at great personal cost. The audience applauded. I thought about Dad serving his sentence in federal prison, Austin, who'd been transferred to a minimum security facility after a year of good behavior, Mom, working at a department store in a different state, trying to rebuild her life. I thought about the investors who'd gotten back 40 cents on the dollar when Morrison Properties' assets were liquidated. Not everything, but something. Justice, even if incomplete. Mr. Morrison's reporting didn't just expose a single criminal enterprise, the presenter continued. It sparked a nationwide investigation into real estate fraud that has led to dozens of additional arrests and the recovery of over $50 million in stolen funds. More applause. I thought about the book deal I'd signed, the advance that had let me move out of my studio apartment into a real one-bedroom, the promotion to senior investigative reporter, the respect of my colleagues, the success built on destroying my own family. In accepting this award, I said into the microphone, I want to remember the real heroes of this story, the sufferers who trusted the wrong people with their life savings, the sources who risked their careers to tell the truth, the prosecutors who built an airtight case against powerful defendants. I paused, looking out at the crowd. Journalism isn't about making friends or preserving relationships. It's about holding powerful people accountable, regardless of who they are or how we're connected to them. Sometimes that means making difficult choices. Sometimes it means sacrificing personal relationships for the greater good. The Morrison Properties investigation taught me that family loyalty has limits. Those limits are defined by law, by ethics, and by basic human decency. When family members cross those lines, they forfeit their right to protection. I held up the award. This belongs to everyone who believes that truth matters more than convenience, that justice matters more than loyalty, and that some betrayals are so profound that they change everything. After the ceremony, I walked outside into the cool night air. My phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, interview requests from reporters, invitations to speak at journalism schools. One message stood out. From Natalie. Saw the news about your award. Congratulations. You always said you wanted to make a difference. I guess you did. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some chapters of life needed to stay closed. I walked home through the city streets, past the newspaper boxes displaying tomorrow's Herald with my story on the front page. Another investigation, another set of powerful people held accountable, another step toward justice. At my apartment, I opened my laptop and began working on my next story. There were always more stories to tell, more truth to uncover, more justice to seek. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Austin Morrison, Correctional Facility. I let it go to voicemail. Some relationships, once broken, could never be repaired. Some betrayals were too deep, some choices too final. My family had shown me who they really were, and I had responded accordingly. The consequences of their choices would follow them for the rest of their lives. Dad would die in prison. Austin would spend his prime years behind bars. Mom would live with the shame and stigma forever. And I would continue doing what I'd always done. Seeking truth, exposing lies, holding powerful people accountable. Even when those powerful people were family. Especially then. I deleted Austin's voicemail without listening to it and went back to work. Some stories never truly end. They just reach a point where justice has been served, truth has been told, and consequences have been faced. This was that point.